All right, y'all. We are live. Welcome to the Science of Sport Podium Chat, powered by the LA84 Foundation. My name is Joey Della Rosa, and I have the esteemed honor to facilitate today's interview, and with an absolute gem of a human being, Mr. Zach Penprase. He's an Olympian. He's an Olympic baseball player, a mental performance coach, a dad, even knows how to work with his hands, doing some construction, Mr. Do It All. So excited to have you on, Zach, and certainly in for a treat to learn more about you, man. So thanks for coming on today.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
For sure, for sure. Before we jump in, Zach, a little bit further, I do got to give a shout out to our sponsors. So the LA84 Foundation, they've given us a tremendous grant to help bring our programming to fruition and to be able to do things like this. And so, if people don't know who or what the LA84 Foundation is, a fun fact for you or for the kids: the 1984 Olympics were actually hosted in Los Angeles, and out of that Olympics, it was the first surplus. It was the first time an Olympic event or first time the Olympics had ever made money. And so the LA84 Foundation was found, and they help facilitate some amazing events and programming within the Los Angeles region. So, uh, big proponent of LA84. So thank them for allowing this to happen. And then we certainly got to give a shout out to the teachers, well, first to Compton and Inglewood USD, but the teachers who are participating in our chats today and our workshops, they've been big in helping bring math and science to life through sports. And so, kids, if you're listening to this, your teachers are going above and beyond, and they're absolute gems. So make sure you thank them any chance you can get for their time and their energy in helping support you. So with that said, Zach, you ready to jump in? I got a bunch of really questions for such a cool dude. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm excited, man. Let's get it.
Let's get it rocking, man. So background. So tell the kids like where are you from?
I'm from Moore Park, California. It's like an hour northwest of Los Angeles. So I grew up going to Dodger games and hanging out kind of in the suburbs of LA. So I grew up in Southern California, Moore Park, California. If anybody knows where that is,
What high school did you go to?
Moore Park High School, and
Moore Park.
I wanted to play every sport there. I only ended up playing soccer and baseball. I played football my first year, but after those 2 weeks of what they call Hell Week, I was like, I don't like getting hit this much.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we'll get to baseball. We got a lot of baseball to talk about today, obviously, because that's like your go-to. So, how did soccer impact like your future of sports?
Definitely, like soccer is huge in communication, and almost like I love being like midfielder and seeing like the angles and the through balls that you can pass to and seeing the stuff ahead of time. So like I feel like it helped with anticipation and moving to spaces, open spaces, and like kind of becoming aware of my surroundings within the game, and then also the communication part, and being on the same page with your teammates. Like that's a huge part of any sport, but I think in soccer, you see these angles, and when you make eye contact or you see that your teammate's making that run, and that you got to put that ball right where he's running to, it's a different level of performance. So I think that's a fun part of soccer that I bring to other sports, including baseball.
That's awesome. That's really cool. While we're on the topic of like different sports and stuff, and as with many different sports, many activities in life, baseball, as you know, is a team sport. It takes a lot of people coming together with multiple skill sets to help make the team successful. What would you say is or was your specific skill set that you brought above and beyond to the baseball team that you baseball teams that you've been on?
Above and beyond would be like team chemistry. I've also I also take pride in myself of like calling people out on stuff that they're not being, their integrity, I guess you could say. And when it comes to people either lying or just not keeping true to the team or being selfish, I'm the one that calls them out on it. And so that is a different sort of chemistry. And I was known as a leader in the sense that I thought differently. So I would bring up topics that not everybody thought about, and we'd have conversations around it. And then I was never afraid to debate anything about the game, whether it's a style of play or a type of play, any kind of thing that's going on. But mostly like the locker room chemistry, the team chemistry, everybody gravitated to have a conversation with me or get my insight on whatever was going on within the team chemistry and within the game itself too. So above and beyond just playing, I liked being the guy that people say I like to stir the pot. So that was kind of like a thing where I like to stir the pot, but I also like to jump in the pot. I don't like to just stir it and run away. I'll jump in right in. I'll stir it and I'll jump in and we have a conversation about whatever.
That's great. Where did you learn that from? Like, can you recollect like a role model in your life that sort of ingrained those values of sort of corralling folks or being the leader, or just not stopping at mediocrity, right? Not going to that next level of continuous improvement and always continuing to improve yourself. Where do you think you got that from?
That's a good question. I don't really know. I don't know where. I mean, I'm kind of a mixture of like my grandparents. My grandmother in particular had a huge influence on me, and she was a church going Christian, hardcore, like really connected to like, it doesn't matter if it was connected to Christianity itself, but she always talked about God and saying like, God's given you a gift. And when you feel like you've been lied to or someone's not being honest, ask them a question or ask them why they aren't being, truthful. So maybe that had a big influence on me as far as like the honesty and integrity part and accountability and responsibility to be that guy of like, yo, this isn't right. Like, and to speak up. But she was a very quiet, kind of just kept to herself woman. So she wasn't an outgoing, outstanding person like I was, in the sense that like I will not necessarily get in your face, but I will say something to your face for sure.
Yeah.
And she wasn't like that. But I don't really know where I got that from. I've kind of just had this. I'm an aggressive baseball player. I'm an aggressive athlete. Whenever I do something, I'm the aggressive type. I do things. I like to fail and then learn from it. I'm not a passive guy. I'm very aggressive. And so maybe a mixture of her influence with just kind of my nature and my spirit of that aggressiveness combined just kind of created that.
Yeah. I mean, you touched on so many interesting things right now. One of the things I want to kind of dial in a little bit on is we talked about success through failure. And that's really big with the science of sport and things that we teach. It's huge with the LA84 Foundation. They talk about growth mindset. Can you talk, we got probably a slew of anywhere from like third to sixth graders on the call today. So what can you talk about is like the importance of success through failure? Like walk us through that journey and kind of what that means in your life from your perspective.
Yeah, so I have a big saying that I tell myself and my students is that have faith in failure, because failure is really the only place that you grow. If you're constantly succeeding, and then you fail when you're 15 years old and it's the first time you failed, a lot of people shut down, but then they call it burnout, but it's really not. It's just the fact that you failed for the first time in your life and you don't know how to overcome the challenge. So there's also a famous saying, it's fail forward fast or fail fast forward, or whatever it is. So the more you fail, the more you grow, the better you learn. And more importantly, when it comes to the science of it, when you're visualizing, which if any, I don't know if third through sixth graders are visualizing, but I like to just say when you're daydreaming, because middle schoolers, they like to daydream. And when you're daydreaming, you're having these visions of dreams or where you would rather be instead of school or whatever it is, and you're getting these feelings. Well, in visualization, they've actually proven scientifically that when you overcome a challenge in your visualization, it's easier to overcome it in real life when you actually have a challenge in real life. And so when you fail in real life, then you've already known that you overcome the challenge. So the more that you see yourself and pretend to fail or even really fail, the more you grow. So always remember, have faith in failure, because really, like, if you're scared of failing, fear and excitement are the same thing. Fear and excitement are the same chemicals are released from your brain. It's just that we feed the fear. So if we can feed the excitement to fail, then we're excited to fail. Now I want to fail so I can learn and grow and get better.
Man, so many nuggets for the kids. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and I know myself, I didn't understand visualization till probably about a little bit later, like middle school, high school. I remember being at a basketball camp, and there being a free throw shooting coach there. And I'll never forget the story he told us about this experiment that went on about taking a group of kids shooting free throws, practicing like, 20 to 100. I forget what the actual number was. Another set of kids that just put them in a room, and I want you to visualize. He told them, I want you to visualize shooting and making free throws. I want you to visualize and feel it. What does that feel like every time you made that free throw, and all your body mechanics? Brought them back, the both subsets back together for like a final round of shooting, and the team, the group that was doing the visualization did better, right? It was like statistically, what do they call it, like relevant or approved. So I always found that story to be pretty interesting. And then the second point I wanted to make, and this is for the kids and the teachers on the call, the workbooks that we've given you. So Zach talked about doing these visualizations. Lesson, I believe, 26. So we have lesson 26 is called Sports Psychology, and it's all about visualization and walking them through those steps. So that's something that you guys can put in action, as Zach is mentioning it
And
right
you can
now.
actually write, if you're, a workbook or a journal, you can actually write down what you've seen in the visualization. And when you write it and then you read it back later, maybe a week or 2 months later, and you actually, like I've been feeling that a lot, and like I've actually seen it come to fruition in real life. And so journaling is a huge part as well of like being a student of the game, and understanding what you're visualizing, and where you're going toward and what you've learned. So that's huge.
For sure. We're gonna certainly journey back to mindfulness and some other topics there. But like I know the kids are dying to know, like, I mean, talk to us about being an Olympian. There's a lot to unpack here, but maybe start with like, how did you react? How did you feel when you made the team?
When you ask that, I get this feeling because when we qualified in Italy, my parents were there, my wife was there, and then my new daughter was there, and it was actually like her first birthday. So she was 1 year old, and we had qualified. And I remember looking up in the stands and just like I started crying. Like, what is this really happening? And they were able to be here to witness it. Like they flew out all the way to Italy to see us qualify, and the journey itself was like so much more to that, right? Like we had such a low chance of even qualifying. We had barely even, made it high enough in the European Championship, and we knew we had to first get to the European Championships. We had to win a tournament in Bulgaria, and then we went from Bulgaria 2 weeks later to the European Championship. And then we knew we'd never really done well in that because there's some top 12 teams in that. And then next thing you know, we come in fifth. So we move on to the next round, which is the qualifier in Italy. And we kind of knew we had a chance because we had lost to Spain, Italy, and Netherlands in the European Championships. And the old saying is it's hard to beat a team twice in those kind of tournaments. And so we knew we had a chance. And we went on to Italy, and we beat Spain right away. We went on to beat Italy in a crazy game. We beat Netherlands, which is like very difficult to do with the talent that they have. And then we ended up getting too comfortable. We lost the Czech Republic, and then we had to win that last game. It was against South Africa, and we ended up mercying them. And it was just that means we won 11. We actually won 11-1 in 7 innings, and I can't describe the feeling. And we really didn't know the excitement until we landed in Japan and got there, and we were in the village. And especially because we were so excited, so excited, so excited. And then everybody knows COVID hit and everything got canceled. And so we didn't even know if we were even going to be able to go. So that adrenaline, that excitement kind of died off. And all we had to do was like stay prepared. We had to stay ready this
Mhm.
whole time over the last, year and a half longer than we expected. And yeah, I remember just getting to the village and just being like, do we even like, are we really here? Do we belong here? I mean, I don't know. I'm 36 years old and I've been retired for a long time. So for the kids on the call, I actually retired in 2015, and at 30 years old, got married, had a kid, started building a business. and I got an email saying, "Hey, do you want to try to qualify for the Olympics?" What? Yeah, sure, okay. Actually, I said no at first because I was a new dad and I was building a business, and my wife was like, "What are you like? What are you talking about? It's for the Olympics." I was like, "Yeah, you're right." My wife's actually my mindset coach, so I go to her for any advice. But so then this whole thing of becoming an Israeli and through my blood and stuff like that, that process went about, and then we show up, and the one cool thing about being on Team Israel is when we showed up, it was like instant chemistry. Like we all were instantly brothers, like we had been playing together for 20 years. The instant chemistry I had never felt before ever until I played on Team Israel. It usually takes a couple weeks, if not a couple months, to build that kind of chemistry. And so we had that chemistry from the get-go, and we were all willing to do anything to make it to the Olympics, and we made it. And when we were walking in the village, it finally hit us where we were like, wow, we beat the odds. We upset all of Europe, and we now are one of 6 teams to be here in competing in baseball. So I don't know. Like, I don't know if there are words for it, but that's kind of the story behind it. I don't know how I feel. It's unbelievable, really.
Yeah, well, I think the words certainly that you shared encompass how you felt, but for me and for the kids watching and teachers, I mean, you sort of you're glowing here the last couple minutes, especially man, just talking about it. So that's contagious, and that's kind of like, and a good sort of lesson for kids too, right? It's like, I mean, you just never know what's coming down the pipeline. Like I said, have faith, and even though you thought you were retiring, you weren't really retiring, but all the lessons you've learned helped you get to that point and make the team, right? And so that's pretty fascinating. So
Definitely.
hard work is always paying off. It's always paying dividends.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I just played the game for so long that even being out of it and just still coaching and throwing batting practice and being around the kids and taking ground balls with them and showing stuff, staying in that kind of somewhat shape. But it's like riding a bike, like it's the old saying. It's like riding a bike that you've done things for so long that you've kind of mastered it, and that you could just pick it up and do it, just like you were playing yesterday. Yeah, I had to kind of get back in shape, and that was kind of tough being 30, 34 years old and being out of it. But really, like when it comes to a skill, you know, so many hours, it's you pretty much mastered it, and you're able to pick it up whenever you want.
Yeah. So I'm not sure if the kids caught that right, but let's reiterate. Like, so you are American born, right? You raised in LA, and you got to play for
Yes.
Team Israel, which hat am I wearing right now? Is that
Yeah, Israel baseball hat. We
yeah, I had a
we actually
sport.
couldn't use that logo because it kind of has like, it looks like Nike swooshes on
That's
it.
what I
So
thought. I thought it was like when I bought it, I was like, that's kind of cool. They integrated the swish, man. That's like innovative. And then I was like, wait, that's not an actual swish. Or yeah, it was not a swish. But so you guys couldn't wear it, huh?
no, they made a whole new logo for us. But yeah, so
Who were the
uh
sponsors?
we had like our jersey in the European Championship was made by BLK. But
Okay.
then our uniforms in the Olympics were made by Majestic, which was the MLB brand
Right.
forever. Now I think they're Nike now, but
Oh, okay.
forever it was Majestic. And then we had New Era hats, so we were pretty much had big league stuff.
Got it. So
And then Mizuno was like the Israel Olympic. We had to wear stuff around the village. We couldn't just wear our own clothes. We had to wear like these uniforms around the village, and Mizuno made all of our stuff, our shoes, our shirts, and stuff like that.
yeah, yeah. So the just shed some knowledge on the kids here. How were you able to play for Team Israel? What's kind of like the quick summary? How were you able to make that happen?
Awesome. Great question. So, um, first of all, like it's such a cool tie because when I got married and retired, I started discovering a lot about my roots and where I came from. And my great grandparents actually came from the island of Rhodes, which is now Greece, but it's been Turkey and
Hmm.
Portugal and Spain. And, it's only about 45-minute flight off of Israel. And so big Sephardic Jewish community there. And they ended up coming over before the war, and way before the war, like World War I, like coming over and settling down in LA. And there's a huge Sephardic Jewish community that like these old people that know my grandparents, like, oh yeah, no. So I started discovering these roots. And then, so if any of you out there are Jewish descent up to your grandparents, your mom's side or your dad's side, doesn't matter. You can make what's called aliyah, which is basically coming home. And one of the original reasons why Israel was created was so Jews had a place to come home to, because they got dispersed out throughout the war, and so they created this land. Aside from any other thing that you hear, but this is one of the main reasons, is that so Jews had a place to come home to, and so they created this thing called aliyah, which is anybody that has his roots up to your grandparents can become an Israeli citizen. And so in order to play in the Olympics, you had to be a citizen of that country. And so very creative thinking by Peter Kurz, who's the president of Israel baseball, thinking that, hey, I can get some American guys that are descendants of Jews, and they can become, first of all, they can become Israeli citizens, get more in touch with their roots, and we can try to, become Olympians. So it'll be great all around. And that's what he did. He got some guys that were kind of on the fence, like me, some guys that are like out of college, and some big leaguers, and just put a team together. But basically, through Aliyah, the process of Aliyah, you can become an Olim, and you can head home and become an Israeli citizen if you have any blood in you.
That's pretty rad. I bet you didn't see that journey happening.
No, I had no idea. Growing up, I had friends go on what they call birthright. Also, another opportunity is if you just want to go discover Israel and you have any ties to Israel, you can go on what's called birthright, and they pay for the whole like 2-week excursion. They take you around to all the holy sites, and they feed you and everything like that. And I heard about my friends going on this, and me and my brother wanted to, but we just never did. And then this opportunity presented itself. It was like, wow, I guess I'm just meant to go there, So
yeah,
it's very cool.
that's so cool. And I won't share too many details, or maybe we'll have to do a catch up. I'll talk about my trip to Birthright. But one of the most fascinating experiences I was ever able to do. And like for the kids that aren't Jewish, right? Jewish or not, like I think the main core takeaway here too is like it's so fascinating, and you can learn so much about yourself and your soul and your spirit about exploring your family roots and kind of where you came from. And that's kind of like where your journey started, right? You're like starting to like explore a little bit, and then this all kind of just like synergize into something bigger than you, and always being part of something bigger than yourself helps fuel your energy, I think, a little bit more. So I always talk to kids about, explore, ask your grandparents, ask your parents questions about where they came from and their values. And you talked about your grandma, right? And she was, she wasn't Jewish, she was Christian, and she was sharing some great values that undertoned just how to live. So
that was my other grandma, who's actually like
yeah.
from gosh, like Finland. So, but then my grandma, my mom's side, that's where she's from, the island of
Yeah,
Rhodes.
that's so
So,
cool. Awesome. Well, I want to talk a little bit more about, the Olympic experience and just, more like the baseball career and then kind of leading into mindset stuff a little bit. But like, were you ever, I don't know, I'm always curious, like, were you ever injured?
oh yeah, I was injured a lot. I've had 2 shoulder surgeries. I've had one on each shoulder. My labrum tore, one on a swing, and then one just over time of throwing. So I've come back from 2 shoulder surgeries. I was always hurting my hip flexors,
Uh-huh.
straining some kind of muscle because I stole a lot of bases. So I was always high intensity guy. And
I hear you have a record for stolen bases. Somebody. What's up with that?
I have multiple records. I mean, I don't know what record are you talking about?
Well, you tell me. You got a lot of records. I want to hear them all. The kids love records.
Well, for a time I played in a league for 2 years, and then we switched leagues. And then for a time I was the stolen base leader of that league, in history. And then a couple years later, somebody broke it. But at that team in Fargo, North Dakota, I hold 10 records actually. Hits, runs, stolen bases, walks, strikeouts, even, games played, probably errors made, like all that stuff. So just because I played there for so long and not many people in that kind of league play for that long with one team. So I played for 8 years with one team. That's unheard of. So those are the records. But I also led collegiate in 2006, the year I got drafted. I led the nation in stolen bases with 57, officially 57, but I stole 60.
That's what I heard. I heard there was like they're missing three.
Yeah,
So
they're definitely missing three. But in high school, I didn't steal many bases, and then when I got to college, my coach was like, "Just go, just go, just go." And even when I got thrown out, he's like, "I don't care, just go." And that's when the idea of like my running toward fear kind of like happened. Was I was allowed to then fail. So I think there are a lot of kids out there where they're not allowed to fail. They play on teams, or even their parents maybe is that they don't feel like they're allowed to fail, so they feel like they have to be perfect the first time, and then they just don't want to do it. When you see the fall, you don't want to jump, right? So it's a crazy mindset where we also have to um, be aware of our surroundings, and as parents and as coaches, we have to kind of allow for that failure to happen, or else the kids don't learn as well.
for sure. Let's talk about routines a little bit. Obviously, routines are a big part of your success, our success, and doing anything worth achieving. What are some of the routines that have sort of stuck with you over time, like a timeless routine that you want to pass on, or sort of share the wisdom with that routine with the kids?
I mean, for me, it was visualization and breath work. Really, I was kind of an anti-routine guy, because not in the sense of an anti-routine. I just think that sometimes it turns into a superstition. So it's okay to it's
Yeah,
okay to have a routine,
yeah.
and then also at the same time, make sure it doesn't turn into superstition. So if you don't get that routine in, or there's going to be days that are days of adversity where you're not able to get your whole routine in. So you still have to perform whether you get that routine in or not. So I see a lot of things turn into superstitions. The most
Mm,
important part, the most important like knowledgeable aspect of a routine is just being consistent with it. So the more, if you're consistent for 10 days and you miss a day, that's okay, as long as you pick it up the next day and you keep going, right? So it's like it's all about being consistent with whatever routine you have, and that allows you to show up as your best self even better, even when you're not prepared. So it's all about consistency, and whatever
yeah.
routine you choose, just don't turn it into a superstition.
Yeah, because that's a good point. That can create blockages and an excuse for failure, so to speak.
Yeah, for sure. I only had really one routine that I did every day, and that was at the national anthem. I would hold my finger up behind my back, which was for a number. It actually made a 10 for my one of my good friends that died. I have his name tattooed on my arm, and I would hold that behind my back, and then I would just thank my grandma, my grandpa, and God for the opportunity, and say, "Keep me safe, keep me healthy, and I love you." And that was my routine. So I could always control that. I could always get that in 10 seconds. There was no disrupting that. That's for sure. So also keep it simple, and start small with the routine. You don't have to build this whole routine where it's like at 7 o'clock and then all the way till noon you have this routine. It's like, just start with something you do every day. Like I said, breath work is one of my routines. So start with just consciously taking a breath every day for the next week, and then you can start to add a routine onto that.
That's awesome. Well, Zach, so you're a mental performance coach. Tell the kids a little bit about what that means and what you do with that part of your life.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, everybody talks about how important the mental game of any sport is. And if you are an athlete and that's all you care about right now, especially you're in middle school, there's really no worries in your life. You feel like there are, but there really isn't. Because when real life hits, when you're 30 years old and you got a kid or whatever, you've got a job, that's when it starts to become stressful. So I think it's important to take some of these mental and mindset aspects from sports into life. And what I do basically is, when I was a kid and when I was growing up and even in high school, I got approached with a lot of coaches that didn't like me. And when it came to performing or playing or practicing or anything, I felt like I was being picked on by these coaches. I'm really just a great leader, and they felt threatened by me from what I'm, kind of digging a little bit deeper now. But regardless of that aspect, I had to learn how to deal with them, and how to still go about my game, and not let it affect me mentally. And I was on a great path, and I was, mentally there. And then when I got to the minor leagues, there are certain coaches that really try to, put their mark on you. And if you don't allow it, then, they're going to bury you, and you're not going to make it, if they have anything to say about it. So that broke me down mentally, and I wasn't performing. I wasn't playing at my best. And I worked with a mental performance coach, and he helped me out. And I was just on another level. Baseball was fun again. I was having a great time. I ended up playing 10 years professionally. And when I got done and I got into real life, started working with my dad, doing construction, I wasn't having fun. I didn't like it. I didn't like waking up and going to work. Even though I'm good at it. I'm really good at it. But it just, I had to start to use some of my mental stuff for myself, affirmations of telling myself I'm patient, and I'm a good listener, and I'm showing up as my best self, and journaling, and visualizing and meditating, and working on my breath, and consciously taking a breath no matter what I'm doing. My communication skills, that's a mental skill as well. Communication and how you're saying stuff, and not just what you're saying. And so I started using these things, and then I started giving physical lessons, and I started working with kids, and I saw that most of these kids don't need physical help. They need mental help. And that's not a negative term. We think mental help is a negative term. It's just that we just need someone to hold our hand and support us, to lift us up and elevate us mentally. And so I hit up my mental performance coach, and I said, I want to do what you do. But I want to do it with kids. He does it with like business people and big leaguers and stuff. I like that aspect, but I also see the need for it in high school and college. And I really relate to that age, and middle schoolers too. I love working with middle schoolers. And so that's what I do. I help people connect with their breath, connect with their own intuition, their wisdom, because we have the best computer on our body right here in our brain. Like, our brain knows our body better than any other computer ever. And when we can connect back with that intuition, that source, that's just where all the knowledge is, and we're able to communicate better. We can walk around better. We can be a better brother, a better son, eventually a better husband, a better whatever you want to be. And we can just walk around with this glow and this spirit. And so I like connecting the mind and the body, and that's my connected performance is like my company. And that's what I say is like mind, body connected. Like we can have the mind all cool. We can just think all day, and we can have the physical and just be so talented. But if we can't connect the two, we really can't reach our peak state.
Oh man, so much to touch on right there. I will say, fun fact, yoga, the root of yoga in Sanskrit is yuj, Y-U-J, which means to connect, right? So that's what yoga is, union. And so that's what you're talking about, connecting the mind, the body, the soul. I know I can speak for the kids. I'm speaking for myself, but the kids and the teachers, we'd love for you to walk us through like a technique that you use, whether it be visualization or breath work, before we end the call. Let's what do you say? You wanna help coach us, coach Penprase? Can you walk us through something?
Definitely. I would love to. And this is something that I teach everybody on no matter what call that I do. It's a breath that changed my life. And scientifically, it's actually been shown that if you practice this for 4 to 5 minutes a day, you can actually respond better. You can like lower you can lower your heart rate just with a thought even better. You can handle kind of the stresses of life, of sports, whatever you want. And it's called box breath. It's my favorite breath. And it's very simple. I'm just going to guide you through 2 rounds of it, which takes 40 seconds. At the end of the second round, I'm going to encourage you to hold your breath out as long as possible. I encourage you to try to pass out. I haven't yet to know anybody to pass out. I'm not encouraging bodily harm. I guarantee if you pass out, your body will automatically wake itself up with a breath. But the way box breath works is very simple. We're going to breathe in and out of our nose, and we're going to breathe in for 5 seconds. So and then we're going to hold for 5 seconds. And then we're going to exhale for 5 seconds. And then we're going to hold out for 5 seconds. Okay. So now we can't just say like, I'm going to breathe in for 5 seconds ago and then hold it and wait for me to say hold. We got to do a nice, that's the importance of the 5 seconds. It's a slow inhale. And then the breath holds are very, very important because that's when our brain starts to panic. Why are you holding your breath? What are you doing? And then when you're holding out, it's like, you better take a breath in or else you're going to die. You might not make it. You better take a breath. You better take a breath. So it's like this exercise is so good because not only are you creating space in your body, you're giving your body oxygen and energy and creativity through that breath, and you're connecting more deeply with yourself, but you're also facing some small fears. You're facing these thoughts. When we have 60,000 thoughts a day, and most of them are lies, and most of them aren't even ours, and we can only connect with about 9 bits of information at any given moment, even though our brain is thinking so many thoughts. So with that, we're able to face our little fears, and we are to start to understand, like, wait, you said if I didn't breathe, I was going to die, but I didn't die. So what else are you lying to me about? So this is very important. You can even understand this as a middle schooler. All right. So let's go ahead and practice this, or I'm going to guide you. And all we're going to do is everybody just go ahead and just take a couple of breaths, close your mouth and go in and out of your nose. Connect with your breath. Connecting with your breath is simply just feeling the sensations of the inflow and the outflow of the oxygen entering and leaving your body. That's it. So connect with your breath. Keep breathing. And when I tell you, we're going to take a breath together. And then after we exhale, I'm going to guide you and say, inhale, and I'm going to count. And all you're going to do is follow along. So take a few more breaths. Okay, let's all take one inhale together. Exhale. And let's begin. Let's inhale for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold out for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And now hold out as long as you can. Just keep holding until you absolutely have to breathe. Your brain is already lying to you, telling you that if you don't breathe, you're going to die. It's lying to you. Do not trust it. Keep going as far as you can. Keep going. Joey went for a while. It's really only about 15, 20 seconds max.
It was lying to me. My brain was lying.
I mean, Joey, how many times in that little spiel did your brain say, "You better breathe, you better breathe"?
Yeah, I mean, I held it probably for another 10 seconds or so. But yeah, I mean, you know what fears come up for me? What just happened right now was just, I remember when I used to boogie board in San Diego and get thrown under the wave. And then like you lost of breath and being like, I'm dead, I'm dying. I'm never going to see my family again. And,
Yes.
you know, and it's like, does that
I've
happen?
been there.
Does that happen? Yeah, right. Does that happen to like batter? Like when you're in a high pressure situation and you go to the, you know, the batter's box, right? And it's all on you to like win the game. I mean, do those same stories happen? Is that why you guys use your breath work at home plate before?
That happens all the time. I mean, it's you go up there and you're facing that pitcher. It's mano a mano, and some of the first thoughts are like, if I fail, I suck. If I fail, we lose, right? It's like there's a game on the line. You know, it's like there's a runner on third base and 2 outs. And it's like, if I don't get this hit, we literally lose, you know? And so, but that's just the name. That's the part of the game, right? It's like losing, failing, all that stuff. And I think as kids, like one thing I will leave everybody with is stop focusing on what you don't want and focus on what you want. Like if you're somebody that recognizes that you're constantly saying, well, I don't want this to happen. And the coach asks you, well, how come you didn't swing at that pitch? Well, I don't want to ground out. I don't want to pop. I don't want to get out. Well, you got out anyways because you looked at 3 pitches down the middle and you struck out. So if you're focusing on what you don't want, it's probably going to come true because your brain doesn't hear don't. Hey, don't think about Joey's hat right now. everybody looks at Joey's hat.
Yeah.
Okay, so focus on what you want instead of what you don't want, and that's like when the fears come up. Hey, I'm not focused on the fear. I'm focused on what I want to happen, and that's how we transfer our fear into commitment. We commit to what we want as opposed to committing to the fear that we think is going to happen. It's just a lie, anyways.
Absolutely. And that's why, I just love this breath work, these breath work activities, because it's practice. It's really practice before the game, before things really get chaotic in life. You're toning your nervous system. So
Yep.
you're intentionally putting yourself into a situation where you're gasping for breath, kind of going through a mini panic on purpose. So you can tell your body and your mind that everything is all right. Everything is okay. And man, Zach, I appreciate you. I know we don't have the kids on right now to say thanks. I know they're saying thank you. Thanks to the teachers for participating in today's event. Zach, I mean, I think just like the closing big nugget there is just like focus on what you want, right? Success through failure. Don't be afraid to fail. Get out there, positive growth mindset. Today's interview, man, has really been a special nugget. So we're all beyond thankful for you to come here and shed your wisdom with the community. So thank you so much.
Definitely, you're welcome. Thank you as well.
We're gonna have to have a follow up soon. So LA84, thank you guys for helping support this, and we'll talk to you all soon. Have a great rest of the day. Have a great weekend, everybody.